Welcome to Lair Secret Podcast, a podcast about exploring the sprawling caverns of gaming, hidden treasures of kingdom, and the unexpected intersections of reality. I am David Moore, and I have had to troubleshoot all the things to get this stream going.
And I'm Ken Newquist, and I totally did not buy yet another role-playing game that I don't have time to play. I blame David Moore.
What? What? You're blaming me for
true,
what? What game? What game did you buy?
Ironsworn Starforged.
Ah, gotcha.
Which I have been seeing you guys talk about a lot in, I guess it was Discord. It was Discord, right?
And so I just started in Slack, moved over to Discord. Yeah, it's all over the place now.
I've just been seeing the updates, and it was fascinating, and it was cool. And I'm like, wow, this sounds like a great game. I should get this game, and maybe I'll have once I have prepared the Cyberpunk campaign, maybe they'll let me play.
Yeah,
but I also have some other ideas on it. But yeah, so you want to explain what this thing is that you have tricked me into buying?
It's it is a. I'm trying to remember if it's based on Forged in the Dark or Powered by the Apocalypse. It's kind of both, because Powered by the Apocalypse led into, Forged in the Dark, which is the Blaze in the Dark, all that kind of stuff. But the idea in Starforged is it seems primarily to have been developed as a solo game, I think, which is where Ironsworn, there's an Ironsworn game for fantasy. There's also Ironsworn Delve, which is their dungeon delving aspect of it. Ironforged Starforged is sci-fi. When you go into it, it is either solo, guided, or co-op. Solo is fairly self-explanatory. You can run it through yourself. You can create the story as you go along. If you are stuck or you want a little inspiration, you can roll on an oracle. But then when a conflict happens, there are methods to resolve that conflict. Random matter, and it not totally random. It's based on your skill and your abilities and other things like that. Right. But in a manner that isn't just you trying to say yes, I win, or no, I lose, sort of thing. But then you craft the story as to what actually happened based on what those roles are. Right. So like you can do a strong hit. And I won't go into the technical aspects of the dice rolling, but you can do a strong hit where you get everything you want. You can do a weak hit where you succeed, but the battle's not over yet, or the whatever challenge it is, it may not be over yet, or there's a cost to it. And then there's a miss, and a miss might mean that if you're in combat, you get hurt, or if you're trying to want to run away from someone, maybe they're catching up to you or have caught up to you, that sort of thing. And that aspect of it is for any of these types of games, for solo, guided, and co-op. Guided is almost your traditional role-playing game, like your traditional Dungeons and Dragons or your old school Essentials or whatever, the things that you and I, at least, are most familiar with. And, but instead of it being a story that it truly says you do not need to prep for these games because you're supposed to lean on the oracles, and you're supposed to lean heavily on the moves that your characters get. And you can role play as the person who's guiding the players. You can call for moves, you can call for other stuff, but you're never going to roll dice. It's always going to be the players who roll the dice, but they can get strong hits or weak hits or misses. Right. Pretty consequences. Easily, all those consequences happen. So when you see what the dice happen, you can help narrate what is happening. Especially if there's an NPC or a giant gas cloud storm going on outside your ship. And then the co-op is there is no guide. Everyone is a player and is able to craft the story together. But you really lean heavily on the oracles and your moves in that. And it is definitely a mind shift from a traditional role-playing game, because like we have a group of 4 of us that are playing. We ran through what are called the truths. So your Ironsworn Starforged universe will be different than ours,
Cool.
because there's like 12 truths or something like that. And there are 3 suggested truths that you can roll as like an oracle, or you can just read and go, I like that one. That one's cool. Or you can make your own truth that is part of that particular piece. Let me see if I can really quick grab over here. I might have this in this giant stack of paper I have over here that I should clean up. I don't. Oh, no, I do. It's in the clipboard. So like some truths are, well, lots of rustling of paper today. It's funny because we're doing this all online, but I still printed out a whole bunch of stuff.
Of course, that's what I do.
You start with the cataclysm. Why did humanity flee the galaxy that they lived in to go to this other place that they call, that they call the Forge, which is kind of like a star cluster or even its own galaxy, but it's a different galaxy.
Right.
Then you go to the exodus of like how humanity fled. And then what are communities like in the Forge? The next one is Iron, which is Ironsworn. The core thing that runs through it is adventurers swear vows upon iron, or swear vows upon something. And you have, each character has their own personal vow. It's an epic vow, as in it will last probably your entire character, the entire time that you are playing. It is the underpinning of why you adventure and why you're doing the things you're doing to get to the goal that you ultimately want to get to.
Gotcha.
Takes a very long time. So you may swear other vows that are most likely not going to be the epic level. They can range from like trivial up to epic, but they'll probably be below the epic level. But if you have like if this were Star Wars, Princess Leia, her vow is to take down the Empire and restore the Republic to the galaxy. That's an epic vow. It took 3 whole movies, and maybe not quite even like the Empire kind of came back. So she's kind of got to renew that vow or whatever.
Renew the vow.
That's kind of the driving force of that. And it reminds me of like Spirit of the Century and other Fate games where at the beginning of the book, it says your characters are proactive people. They go out and get things done. They go out and have goals. They're not given things to follow. They aren't led around by the nose to follow a story.
Right.
They make the story.
Right.
I think that's what their intent is for the vow here is you give your character a goal and then you relentlessly or not so relentlessly, depending upon the character, but you pursue that goal.
Right.
Like there are more truths here, like laws, religion, magic, which can range from does not exist to unnatural energies flow through the Forge. Magic and science are 2 sides of the same coin, So like your world, your setting can be very different from other people's settings. And it's just, I like the way you create it, and we created it kind of as a group. We kind of went through and went, yeah, I like that. And then as you're rolling on these oracles, you're like, oh yeah. So the medicine is controlled by this guild that is definitely, they're still healers, but they're very protective of their knowledge. And, and we realized also with the politics side of things and the laws that they're ruled by houses. And so we were getting this Dune kind of vibe. We realized, and later on it was like, and I think this was kind of our own truth that we came up with was AIs had been developed before we fled, and AIs came with us. And we made the decision that AIs are the only thing that can travel the paths between stars and travel faster than light. There's these flows that you go along. So every ship would have to have an AI, except if you are one of these secretive navigator type people who can also, as a human, who can also travel these things. The AIs might not want other humans to be able to do that, or other political entities might not want to do that because they control the AIs, but they don't control these people.
Right.
And so that, like, all of that stuff is added in for our story.
But mine might be totally different.
But yours could be totally different. So that was like our first session. You know, we took about 3-4 hours to go through all these things and talk about the different possibilities and start creating some characters, which they have this really neat set of things, especially if you're playing in front of each other or playing by yourself. They've got all these cards, which I happen to have a nice printer that takes card stock. And then, of course, I had to have rounded corners, so I bought a little corner punch thing.
Of course.
Yeah, as you do.
As one does.
But it's really handy because each one has the base move of, say, like Navigator or Scavenger on it. And it gives you a certain ability. But then as you gain more experience points, you can buy the second and third ability that are on each card. Or you can buy a brand new ability or module for your ship or whatever. Yeah, this is expanded cargo hold for your ship. And when you buy it, you can carry up to 3 cargo. But you can then buy either of the other 2, such as when you make a move to outrun a threat and have at least 1 cargo, you may first lighten your load by dropping cargo. If you do, suffer minus cargo by the amount dropped and add plus that amount and take +2 momentum on a hit. So basically you can add points to your roll when escaping if you drop cargo in front of the people that are that are chasing you. And then if you actually roll a hit, it's a really good thing. There's a thing called momentum in the game that each character has, and you build momentum kind of like in a movie. And as you're overcoming challenge after challenge, and the hero just seems to be going really, really great, and everything's going well for them, they're gaining momentum. Well, what you do is, say you roll and it's a really bad roll, you can burn all of that momentum. You don't have a choice to burn part of it. You burn the whole thing, and that becomes your roll for your skill. So you can have a 10, but you normally roll a D6 and add it to your skill. So you can have it up to a 10, but the challenge dice are 2 D10. And you have to, if you beat 2 of them, if you beat the number on each one individually, that's a strong hit. If you beat the number on one of them, but fail on the other, that's a weak hit. And if you happen to get like something like 2 10s or a 10 and a 9 and you roll an 8, that's a miss.
Gotcha.
You know, and the average roll on a D10 is, you know, mathematically 5.5 compared to 3.5 on a D6. You know, even, you know, round up or down, the D10s are going to normally beat the raw D6, you know, most of the time. And so having a good skill and having your moves allow you to get bonuses and things like that really helps. But it's not going to help. It's not going to win out all the time, because winning all the time makes for a boring story.
Exactly. So it was fun to watch you guys talking about it in the channel, which is one of the reasons I wanted to get it. I'm not going to blame you entirely, because honestly, my lunchtime game, both of our campaigns have wound down. I'm currently writing the epilogue for my Scales of Truth, Dungeons and Dragons science fantasy campaign. So I got maybe 2 or 3 more sessions, but we're basically at the end, kind of rounding out what happened to the characters. And our GURPS campaign actually ended. So we were talking about games we might want to play next, and several of the folks in the group mentioned wanting to do something sci-fi-ish. And it struck me, based on what you were describing and what I was seeing happening in the channels, is that this could be a cool, like, lunchtime game. We only have an hour. Low prep, because you can rely heavily on the oracles. Everybody could play if we did it as a co-op. It's different. We have a couple people in the group who've played Power by the Apocalypse or played Blades in the Dark,
Yep.
whatchamacallit. And so I think, and there's some who are just traditional D&D folks, but I think that they would be able to pick up something like this pretty easily because the moves are there.
Yeah.
Right now it's more complex because there's a lot more moves. But
it's more complex because there's a lot more moves, but like one of the major differences in this compared to like Powered by the Apocalypse is the sheer number of moves. And also there are no playbooks. If you're familiar at all with that, there are no playbooks at all. When you create your character, as you go through creating your setting, it has you draw out some of these cards and say, you might be, if you lived on one of the world ships and, that was derelict or whatever, and you had to scavenge for parts, you might be a scavenger. So it like pulls out all these things and gives you suggestions of, think about this for your character. Think about that for your character. And at the end of it, you will have 3 of these cards and that becomes your playbook. I'm picking these are all incorrect, but like I'm a navigator explorer with a survey bot.
Okay.
We all share the one main ship. Everybody is on the one main ship, but evidently I am escaping from a criminal past and I bought the ship for an unreasonably low price. And so all of that is, melding in with all the other stuff that is all the other characters as well. Every time you play, it's not like you have a choice of 6 or 10 different playbooks. You have a choice of this basically really thick stack. You get 3 of these things out of this really thick stack. And they've got some ideas for like, if you want to play this kind of character, choose these 3 cards. Mm-hmm. There's some ways, like if you only have your time at lunch and you want to just get all character creation done, then you pick one of these and just go for it.
Yeah. And I think if the guys decided we wanted to do this, I could see we how we ended our GURPS campaign was we all just got together because we wanted to be in person. Normally we're online, but we all wanted to get in person for the last game. And so I could see easily doing the flip for the start of the campaign. We're going to do 4 hours of character creation. We're coming in on a Sunday or something, and we're going to do that. And then that sets us up to get the campaign up and running. So anyway, I got the PDFs. I've purposely not read them because I've been working on Cyberpunk RED.
Appreciate that.
And the rule book will be coming eventually. It's out there in the ether, so that'll be a nice little surprise one of these days. But it looks really cool, and I like the solo games. I played a fair amount of those during the pandemic, and someday there'll be some write-ups that make it onto a Lair of Secrets. But it just looks cool. And I've never actually played a game that had oracles like this in it, and I've read a lot about them, but I haven't actually done anything with them. So from a collection standpoint, and from like being able to look at a new rules mechanic standpoint, I can justify it. I can totally justify it. I take it back. It's not your fault, David. It was research. It was research.
I got it for research because I read so much about it. It's like, hey, I wonder if I could reskin this for Dice and Fall, because it does. Like one of the things that it does is it develops relationships between NPCs and other things like that. And that's a big part of what I wanted in Dice and Fall, to have a mechanical reason to encourage players to develop relationships with other, non-player characters, and develop a relationship with the settlement, the comm that they came from. Even though this is a giant stack of stuff with a ton of moves in it, and there are still more moves for like how you proceed through an adventure or through a setting or a session. Like for you as a player, you only need to care really about these 3 things and your ship. And so they're all just going to sit right in front of you all the time. Right. So you don't have to have every card in the deck memorized or anything like that. In character creation, it's like, or in setting creation as well, it's like this section should take between 30 and 45 minutes to complete. And it was fairly correct, even with all of our table talk and everything. Like if you didn't have any table talk, each section would take like 5 minutes because you just write down the result, the result. But you really should roll, read it, and start that point to start making connections and building out your setting and your characters. And so that's why it takes longer. We did, like I said, we did it in 2 sessions total. I think that was good because it allowed us to kind of marinate the setting in our brains before we actually started playing. Then, and session 2 was both finishing characters and doing a first session. The artwork is gorgeous.
Oh, that's the other thing that sold me. The artwork is just completely fantastic.
Yeah.
So
Jeff Sugale had he's done some other art. I actually have, and I might have shown it on the podcast a while back. He did like a Starship Kickstarter with a bunch of concept ships. He's one of the artists in Ironsworn as well.
Wow.
And I like his stuff. And yeah, it's great stuff. There's if you are doing it solo, there's they've released basically all the rollable tables are available in JSON format, and people have then taken those. One guy took that specifically. There's other stuff for Ironsworn, but specifically for Starforged, there's a thing that I've forgotten the name of, but it allows you to put in your character, put in all your truths, has all the oracles, will roll some of the stuff for you. And then the one thing I hadn't shown was the top sheet here, which is going to look horrible on camera, but and even worse in the podcast.
Yes.
But it's a 1/3 of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that has a hex grid on it. And that is the map of the sector that you're in. And then the bottom 2/3 are all the descriptions of your locations in that sector. And every time, and there's a path that goes from one area of the sector to another area of the sector. And then one of the, like in this case, we have 3 points of interest. One of those points of interest will always lead out of the sector. And it's very reminiscent of The Last Emperox by John Scalzi. With
all the better.
Yeah. You could totally run a Last Emperox style game with the shoals and everything like that with this setting.
Yeah, so it's really just like checking all of the boxes. So I felt like I had some money to play with. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get this, and I will do something with it after I finish working on Cyberpunk RED, which I am actually working on. I spent this weekend. I had some time. My wife was away, so it was just me and my son, and I spent the weekend playing with TaleSpire because I have the goal of building out the Cyberpunk RED Easy Mode module in it. Basically 2 basic maps. One's an outside sort of industrial warehouse area. The other is inside of a warehouse. And so it should be fairly straightforward to build out in TaleSpire. And It was quite the adventure, as you got to hear, because I got to a point where I got stuck. And I'm like, I'm not really sure what I'm doing here. I should probably like Slack David and say, hey, can you help me here? Because I'm a little confused. Yeah. But what I've been doing. Yeah.
I mean, you solved the issue that you had pinged me about, but I also was showing you, here's some of the other key commands or other things like that. And that's when you realized having just a 2-button mouse without a mouse wheel hampers things a little bit. There are keyboard commands that do work, but they're not ideal for moving around.
So what I've been doing as I'm building out these maps, I started basically just taking notes, and I'm going to put it up on Lair Secrets once I kind of get to done on maybe one or both of the maps. And so I'm like talking about the hardware I'm running, and like the limitations we ran into, right? Like it's Windows only. It won't run in GeForce Now. So you have to run it on a physical computer. I'm a Mac guy, so like you mentioned, I may not always have the appropriate mouse for doing this. I did actually have an old Microsoft IntelliMouse, which has the scroll wheel in the middle, and it does actually double as a click as a third button, but not well. So I think I have to invest in a new mouse. Okay. Figuring out how to work with 2 displays. When I went on this whole yak shaving expedition to actually just get to the point of being able to use TaleSpire, and so I talked about what the various things I needed to do to actually get to the point where I could even work with it. And then, how do you import a map? Right? Because I have these maps. Once I actually got them into a shape that I could use, because unfortunately, our Telsorian has not released them as standalone maps. I super duper wish they would, because it would make it a lot easier to use.
Eventually for the Street Stories book and PDF.
This feels like for the easy mode, just make it a little bit easier for me, guys, and release them as maps. But that's okay. I was able to get them out. Then I got into this weird situation where the maps were coming in inverted. I'm sure there's a reason within TaleSpire, but they were flipped. And so then I had to flip them horizontally and vertically in order for them to come in and match the layout in the book.
Okay.
So which that was fun.
I didn't actually have that. I didn't have that issue and what Ken is talking about is bringing in a 2D map into TaleSpire so that you can lay down tiles to make the map. And TaleSpire by default does not have that ability. More yak shaving for Ken was, what is this? How do I bring this in? Okay, there's this image to plane plugin. Okay, great. Now what's R2 Modman? What does it do? Oh, it installs that plugin for TaleSpire, and I have to run it and tell R2 Modman to run my TaleSpire so that it can mod it when it starts up. And so if you launch TaleSpire without it, you can't get access to that 2D map. And then every time you shut it, it forgets all the stuff you did in terms of 2D map stuff, so that you have to reload it again. When you reload it again, it sounds like it's hard. Once you do it a few times, it's not that bad. And plus, like, you're going in with you don't have to do it. You could have your image sitting in front of you on the desk if you really want to. But, like when I've done it, I bring it in and I play in TaleSpire for a couple of hours and then, and have built pretty much the skeleton of what I want. And then I don't need that 2D map anymore. And I can just add things like clutter and furniture and other things like that to make the app look. Yeah, you start riffing on it. Empty beer and pop cans strewn all over the place because it's cyberpunk. And and then I can have it in a different window or whatever. So, you don't have to load those all the time, but it is certainly a good help when you're starting a map that you want to copy.
Yeah, so it was quite the adventure. So what I'm trying to do is kind of call out how I did it, and mine's admittedly more complicated because I'm running this on an old iMac and I'm dual booting into Windows. I'm not going to get into the details of that. People can figure out how to install Windows, but I did come up with this is my Windows machine. I usually use Photoshop on my Mac. I don't have Photoshop on a PC, so let me go get GIMP. Wait, how do you use GIMP, which is an image manipulation tool? Because it's been a few years since I used GIMP. So it's been fun. I got to a reasonably good place,
right? Actually, your Photoshop is probably on a different machine.
It's on a different machine,
which means you'd have to pull everything over there, edit it, pull everything back. If it was the wrong size, you have to do it all over again.
Yeah, and so then I have like a share set up with my iCloud account, and then I had to install iCloud it was hilarious. I was actually like multiple times on Saturday just cackling to myself in my dining room while I was doing this, because it was getting more and more ridiculous as I was getting to the right place. And again, some of this was self-inflicted. If I was a Windows guy, I wouldn't have some of these problems, but I got to a pretty reasonable place. I started building out my buildings. I was so satisfied with myself. And then I jump on with you and like, oh yeah, there's these things you can go out and get, the slabs for Cyberpunk. There's like completed buildings. And you go and look at them. Mine looks like it's a 3-year-old built something with blocks. And meanwhile, there's like freaking cathedral, Notre Dame, right? Like, it's
literally. I think someone actually has built Notre Dame with TaleSpire or something equivalent to it. If you play D&D and you want the Strahd's Castle, someone has built it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And there are probably multiples of them out there, and there's
one. It's really, really impressive.
Yeah, and there's one thing that I would like to point out for anyone who's interested in TaleSpire is it's like you're at a table with some really cool terrain and your eyeballs are above the terrain and your miniature sitting there on the table. You're not looking like stuck in third person view over your mini or looking first person through your mini. It's really is designed and meant to be played as if you were a player at a table with some cool terrain on it.
Yeah.
And I say this because I tried to get it to work the other way. And that's not how it's designed to do it. There are all sorts of problems that the developers don't have to do, like making sure the camera doesn't isn't trying to look through the middle of the backside of a wall because it's trying to focus on where your character is. They don't have to do that.
Right.
There's still a little bit of futziness with the interface that I'm still struggling with. There's some height sliders that you can, if you slide them down, the top levels of, like, if you have a multi-story building, the top levels of the multi-story building kind of fly away and disappear so that you can look into the level you want. And that I don't seem to be able to use that properly, or at least not when I was working with Ken on it. It would like sometimes work and then sometimes not. I think that's me not knowing how the interface works, not TaleSpire's fault.
Yeah, so it's amazing stuff. There's some people have built some so there's a cyberpunk / science fiction add-on for free add-on for TaleSpire that made all these resources available. I got a little lost and couldn't figure out where the resources were, but I found it just before David got online with me.
And by add-on, it comes with TaleSpire. It's not you don't have to load it through R2 Modban. There are plenty of other things that you can load through R2 Modban, but I have not experimented with those yet. There are mini packs and things like that.
Yeah. So there's people who have built out like these different cyberpunk pieces, and then there's a person who basically like put them all together so you have essentially Night City, right? The equivalent of a Night City. It's pretty freaking impressive. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm actually just trying to do easy mode and learn the program. It is pretty cool. If you like Dwarven Forge and you're the kind of person who would like to lay out this huge, great virtual set for your players to walk through, it's a great tool. But there is a bit of a learning curve. Yeah, and we're going to help you with that when I eventually post this post.
Yeah, my goal is, if we are gaming in person, to allow players to have like a laptop or whatever that can run it on the table, or maybe just have it running on my machine and showing through the Chromecast on the TV in the living room,
right? And
then, moving their characters for them or something like that. I think it would be pretty cool if we could do something like that and have the cool terrain and yet also be in person.
Yes.
But I'm looking forward to this for Cyberpunk Red, because we did do a sample game to learn Cyberpunk Red, and I was like, hey, here's TaleSpire, everybody, and like and Ken and Chris and was it Josh?
I don't remember. I think it might have just been the three of us. It might have just been the three of us.
And I literally that day went on to I think it's like Tales Bazaar, which is where all these there's Tales Tavern, Tales Bazaar, and they have what are called slabs or boards, which is all this user created content that Ken and I were just talking about a minute ago. And you can literally, for slabs, you can go, hey, I like this. This looks like a cyberpunk junkyard. Copy a literal text string from there, go over into TaleSpire. You can open up a new empty board and then hit paste. And suddenly it's right there in TaleSpire, fully editable. You can do whatever you want with it. And amazing. So we had our first little firefight with Cyberpunk Red, but also our first experience with TaleSpire. And that was our test to go, do we want to use TaleSpire on the stream? And the answer was yes.
So we'll see. It'll be curious to see like how long, I can see it being best for set pieces. And I think we talked about that before, right? Like where you're setting up a cool encounter and you really want to leverage that sort of like immersive feel of the setting, as opposed to, more role playing oriented. We don't need TaleSpire for that sort of stuff. But you can set up some pretty cool encounters and have that 3-dimensionality to it, right? Like where I think a lot of times when you're on just a traditional battle map, it feels like it's flat because you don't typically build up. Yeah.
And for everybody's like ease of use on their characters, because not everybody is 100% well versed in Cyberpunk Red. I think we're probably also going to run a Roll20 like in the background or like on another monitor or whatever. And that's where everybody can keep their character sheets, but we're going to use TaleSpire for the map. And then, like everybody loves physical dice. So we'll probably, anybody could use any of the dice rollers, including the one that's built into TaleSpire.
Right.
The one thing with TaleSpire is it's system agnostic. So it allows you to roll dice. It can measure, it can show area of effects, but it's not written for any particular game system, not even D&D.
Right.
Similar to Owlbear Rodeo in that it's a cool place to play around with minis, and make your stuff looks cool. We've been talking for a little while.
We have.
Yeah, like
we haven't talked for a while,
30,
so we actually talked
minutes.
for a while.
Yeah. We were off last week due to life stuff. I was ill a little bit. I'm on way too many medications right now. But we wanted to talk about our favorite card games. I think we talked about that we were going to talk about this fairly recently.
Indeed.
And one that we have five card games, three of which I'm pretty sure, two of which Ken and I share as as some of our favorites. The other three is like, I think two, Ken has two and I have one other than that. So, but the first one is Fluxx. Why don't you tell us all about Fluxx?
Yeah, so Fluxx is cool. It's a family-friendly game with a ton of themed sets. And so the basic setup is it's a rules-based game where you start throwing down additional exceptions to those rules. So every game starts with a basic card that tells you how many cards you can draw and play. So the typical rule is draw one, play one. And then as the game progresses, that's just one rule card, but you can add additional rule cards as you go along. Now, what you're trying to do is there's these objective cards. So for example, one objective might be hot chocolate. And you're like, well, hot chocolate, how is that an objective? Well, you have also things that are called keepers. And keepers are things like sun, chocolate, love, time. And so what you're trying to do is get the keepers that match the objective. So hot chocolate might be sun and chocolate played at the same time in the game, allows you to complete that objective. There are also these additional rule cards. You know, they might let you they increase the number that you can draw or the number that you can play. They also can say there's no hand limit. So you basically, like, if you have leftover cards, you have to discard anything that remains. You can have a hand limit of 3. Like it manipulates the game in interesting ways, and it tends to spiral. So you get more and more rules. And then there's a rule called Let's Simplify, which I love, and I've occasionally wanted to play in real life, where you get rid of half the rules, or you get rid of all the rules and you reset back to where you were. There are also action cards, which allow you as a single player, like draw 3, discard 1, steal cards or keepers from somebody else, trade cards, trade hands, that kind of stuff. And generally, again, mess with the rules. So you've got 2 very simple rules that you suddenly add all of this complexity to. And it's pretty cool. It's easy to play with kids. My kids played it a lot when they were younger. I will say, if you're going to play it with younger kids, we're talking like 5, 6. So kids who are able to read, because the rules are fairly straightforward, especially for the explicitly family friendly games, right? The ones that are called out for kids. They don't understand when you playing a rule is going to make things less fun. So I think as the adult in the room, you basically have to be sitting there going, okay, this is starting to get out of control. They're having fun, but I can see how everybody's going to be miserable if this continues. So then you hold back that, like, let's simplify, or, you know what, I've got the draw 2. I'm going to get rid of the draw 5 because it was fun for a while, but now that everybody's got way too many cards and it's slowing down the game. So there's definitely, with adults, it's great, because with adults, everybody just is enjoying the complexity of it and laughing and what have you as you're stealing stuff. With kids, you have to kind of manage that complexity a bit, at least in my experience.
Yeah. And there are some sets that add things like what are called creepers, and all creepers, with as always with this game, with some exceptions, all creepers, if you have a creeper in front of you, even if you have the things that would satisfy the goal, the objective, you can't win if that creeper's in front of you. But there are some goals that require a creeper. There are some goals there are some cards that allow you to move or get rid of creepers or win with a creeper, things like that. But, it adds another level of complexity to the game. And some of those games can go on for a long time if there's a lot of complexity.
Yes.
But at the same time, like you can have let me back up a minute. We love this game especially in the before times, we would go out to a restaurant and we'd order food and we'd pull out Fluxx. We'd pull out one of the copies of Fluxx, many copies of Fluxx we have. We'd pull out Fluxx and we would play until the food arrived. Sometimes we'd get 2-3 games in. Sometimes we were still playing the first game because it had gone so long. Then the food arrived. It's like, well, okay, I got to clean up, and we just sweep all the cards together. Unfortunately, I don't have it there. One of the newer Fluxxes is called Olympus Fluxx, and so it has like Zeus and Aphrodite and Hera, etc. There's a rule. You have to call them by their Roman name. So like Zeus becomes Jupiter,
Gotcha.
etc. And those names are printed on the cards. But if you call them by their proper name, it gives you a bonus because of that rule, that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
There is also little pieces on the bottom of the card that there's a rule. When the rule's in play, it says you name the god that you're about to put out. And if the person who's basically to your left, who's next going to play, if they can say what's on the bottom of that card, they get to draw a card. So it's kind of encouraging you to learn that Artemis is the goddess of the hunt sort of thing, you know, and sort of stuff like that. So there's always a little bit of learning in it, but it's very gamified, and it's only a little bit of learning, but
right.
They, you know, Batman Fluxx, not a lot of learning in it, but. Yeah. But
I have Martian Fluxx.
Fluxx, hopefully not necessarily a learning thing in it.
No, this is actually my demo copy. I think I got this as a review copy when I was still doing reviews for sci-fi.com. Okay. But this is a great game because there are many of the keepers allow you to mess with other players. And so there's the mind control laser or beam that you can use it to force somebody to give you another keeper, if I remember correctly. But there's a keeper called Tinfoil Hat that prevents that from working. Nice. And so there's a lot of that kind of stuff. Like
there's a lot of similar stuff in the Doctor Who Fluxx as well. If it sounds like you could take multiples of these sets and combine them together like Munchkin, you can. But your game, because objectives and keepers are confined to the set that you're playing in, you're basically going to exponentially lengthen the game as you try and get through the deck and find the right keepers and the right objectives, and not have all of your keepers wiped off of the table. Like everyone's keepers wiped off of the table because someone played an action card that did that. Yeah. So I would recommend that side of things. I'd recommend playing one set and then going, let's play this other set now.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. And it does get kind of frantic. Like at the beginning, it has a little bit of a ramp up as people are starting to play cards. And it's a different game to play when people are learning versus when a game that people understand the strategy that goes into Fluxx, because you don't necessarily want to get certain keepers out in front of you. Sometimes you actually want to force everybody else to get their keepers out. So it's a cool little game. It's a lot of fun. I think it works for both kids and adults. Speaking of another game that works well for kids and adults, Exploding Kittens.
It's probably backwards.
No, I'm seeing it correct.
Okay, it's only backwards on my screen, which means it'll be backwards when everyone here is looking at it, because this is what's streaming to Twitch.
Yes, this is true. It is backwards.
Yeah, so this is Exploding Kittens. This is I got the Kickstarter, so I also have the Not Safe for Work edition. We're not going to show those. They are, I would say, like junior high school lunchroom humor. Fairly crude, but also funny, but not for everybody's sensibilities.
Yes, definitely.
Exploding Kittens is kind of cool. It's a elimination with your friends, mess with your friends game. Don't eliminate your friends. That might have come out wrong. You eliminate them out of the game, not completely.
Yes. You're not offing your friends.
Yeah. So depending upon how many people you have in the game, there are exploding kitten cards that explode in different ways. You know, let's see. This one is, I don't know what this is. This is this one might be a Not Safe for Work one, but it's okay. It's a cat who is munching on grass and then vomits it up all over a children's playground. So that's one of them. That's
an exploding kitten.
Another one is this particular one is exploding kitten in a nuclear missile silo launching nuclear missiles all over the world. So all kinds of weird stuff. If one of those cards comes up, you are forced to immediately show it. And if you cannot defuse the exploding kitten, usually by like scratching it behind the ear or whatever, whoever drew that particular card gets eliminated.
Right.
Why don't you take over from here?
Yeah, so there's other different kinds of kittens. Like there's a like kitten vomiting rainbows. Like it's all just kind of like juvenile humor, but it's amusing. There's a taco cat. And so I don't remember the specific rule off the top of my head, but if you have pairs, you can do such different things. So if you have doubles, you can draw a card from somebody else. They have to give you a card, and if there's a triple, you can do 3, whatever. The point is you can get cards from other people. There's action cards like in Fluxx that allow you to ask for a specific card, right? Like, so does anybody have a taco cat? You can also there's diffuse cards, which allow you to diffuse the exploding kittens. There's see the future, so you can see what the next 3 cards are. There's like one that allows you to rearrange the order of those cards. So like you can decide like, oh, well, I know that it's going to be David's turn in 2 moves. So I'm going to set it up so the exploding kitten's going to hit him because I don't think he has a diffuse in order to take care of it. Then shenanigans happen and somehow you end up with the exploding kitten. That has been my experience.
Yes.
The goal is to be the last one standing. It is a fun, often I would say raucous game. It is not great for people who don't like elimination games. We play this a lot in Scouts. It is currently in the vault because people were getting very heated playing Exploding Kittens because it is a mess with you game, right? So there's a certain level of maturity and perhaps that you need in order to play this game, because you got to be able to let people mess with you and also be okay with messing with other people. So it's not always great for people who struggle with that. My kid loves it. I think we got this when he was 8. He loves cats. So this was just like a logical, we need to get this game. And so for the most part, I think if your family is comfortable with that sort of competition, it's great. If not, there may be other games that are better for you.
Yeah. The artwork is done by the people who do The Oatmeal, I think it is, webcomic.
Yes.
And so it's line drawings, but it's also like very humorous. You know, there's Beard Cat. It's basically a cat that's in the shape of a beard on a guy's face, things like that. And yes, if you play a pair of, like, say, Beard Cats or 2 Taco Cats, anything that doesn't have other game altering text on it, if you play a pair of those, you can steal a card from another player. And the weird part about this game is you can play as many of the cards in your hand as you want, but at the end of your turn, you have to draw from the draw pile. And so there are times when it's like, I have to draw from the draw pile. I know the next card is an exploding kitten. Maybe I can play a bunch of cards in my hand and get somebody else to do something, or even skip my own turn so that I don't have to draw on the draw pile.
Right.
It's fun. It's interesting. It would be another. It's another game that you could play at a restaurant or just, if you had 15, 20 minutes somewhere else. It's normally it says 15 minutes to play, 2 minutes to learn, 15 minutes to play. So
yeah. It's great. My daughter plays it in college. Like they really enjoy it. And my kids actually went to PAX Unplugged, played it at PAX Unplugged. Like they went into an Exploding Kittens tournament. They loved it so much. So
nice.
So for
now, this
the
next one,
game,
I don't know that I've ever heard of this game. You might have told me about it, but I have never ever played it. First time really seeing it.
Yeah. So the game is called Morels. And it's a 2-person game. So for a while there, I was on a kick to find 2-player games that I could play with my wife. Our go-to for years has been Carcassonne, and we talked about Carcassonne previously, but I was looking for card games that we could do that with. And so this is a 2-person game. And the idea is that you are walking through the woods, picking mushrooms, and then you are trying to pick up sets of mushrooms, which you then cook. And then as you cook them, you get points based on the rarity of the mushroom. And it's a fun little game. You lay out. So basically it has these different cards. So I'll show some of the cards. There's a honey fungus card. There's a hen of the woods card. So these are different kinds of mushrooms. I've never even eaten some of these mushrooms. Lawyer's wig mushroom.
These I think are mushrooms that, like, you would need to know where they grew in the woods and farm them yourself. These are not. Yes. These do not sound like mushrooms that you would normally find in a grocery store.
I don't think you're going to go to ShopRite or Giant and pick up these kinds of mushrooms. You might go to a specialty place that has these kind of mushrooms.
You might go to a high-end restaurant that has them.
Right. So you can imagine that you are walking through a beautiful European forest with maybe your faithful pig at your side. There is not actually a pig in the game. Looking for various kinds of exotic mushrooms that you're going to cook with. And then you get bonus points for if you use special ingredients like apple cider, uh, uh, butter. I get hungry just like talking about these cards because my wife and I both love mushrooms, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll play this game and we're like,
mushrooms
really
sauteed in a little butter.
Yeah. Now there's also poisonous mushrooms. So there's a destroying angel, which is actually a toxic thing that has in-game effects that can like negatively affect you. But sometimes you want to draw this mushroom because it's going to have consequences, but you're willing to deal with the consequences to get some other cards.
Interesting.
So I won't go into overall mechanic, but basically the idea is you're walking along the path, you're picking up these mushrooms. Every turn you're adding new mushrooms. I think you take 2 mushrooms off the path. There's basically like I think 6 to 8 cards that are lined up. The 2 at the far end come off, 2 new ones come on, and so it's recreating that experience of walking through the woods. And then eventually you gather enough mushrooms and you cook your mushrooms. There is a multiplayer expansion that adds some additional rules, then allows you to play it with 3 to 4 players. We actually played that over the summer with our friend at Lake Champlain. It's a cool little game. I recommend it for any couple who wants to just kind of have a chill night. The kids are asleep, or maybe they're out, at a football game or what have you, and you just want to have a glass of wine and maybe some mushrooms. The edible kind, although I won't judge if you decide to have the other kind. These are definitely about edible mushrooms. It's fun. It's a very relaxing game, so it's kind of our chill date night game when we don't want to go out.
I would probably get it, but I have bought so many of these that what I would need to do is I would have to find someone who had a copy of it and borrow it, or be at a con and say, "Hey, Aaron, sit down with me. Let's try this thing out and find out if she likes it." I don't want to buy it and then go, "Oh, it's just going to sit on the shelf," because she's hesitant to even pick it up because it's now in our house and now she feels obligated or something. So
yeah, and I think I may have tried this one out at Gen Con. That's where going to one of the cons where there's demo tables running, right? Like I'd gone to Gen Con expressly looking for games that my wife and I could play. And so this, and to your point, I have many 2-person games. This is one of the ones that stuck.
Gotcha. Yep. Weirdly enough, and more on our board game list from last time was I picked up the newest version of Clue.
Oh, okay.
Because while I was prepping for my colonoscopy, which I found out because I had COVID, I had to move it, and it ended up being the day after we were supposed to go to a dinner theater, and I couldn't go. So my wife and I decided, okay, well, Tegan, our youngest, would really like to see Clue. It was just going to be a date night for Aaron and I, but I was like, take Tegan, go have fun. I'll just be here. I'll draw the curtain on that part. They had a lot of fun with Clue. The movie is amazing. Both Aaron and I are huge fans of it, and they had a lot of fun. And I'm like, and we were talking about it, and she'd like, it's almost just like the board game, and in some ways. And so we got it, and so I went online and looked, and it was not too expensive, and they said they would play. So we got it and played it. The rules are a little different now than they used to be. You used to have to move between rooms to make suggestions of like, hey, was the study at all involved in this murder, sort of thing. Right. Now you just have to be in a room, and you can just make a suggestion, and you don't have to move. They took most of the idea of Clue away. So I think I might find the older set of rules and print those out. Like, it's like they made the game simpler to play, but it didn't need to be made simpler.
Right.
And they've got a lot of cool, metallized murder implements, but there's no gameplay around them. You just scatter them around the rooms for flavor or something.
Oh, right. Gotcha.
So it's weird. But it was fun. We played it. It was fun. We played a couple rounds. It was fun. Tegan won. I won one, and Tegan won one.
Nice.
So another game, though, that I wasn't supposed to talk about board games. But you have another game here that I've heard about a lot, but Race for the Galaxy, but I don't know what it is exactly, and I want to play.
It's a really cool game. So we actually discovered this one, I think it was at Origins in like 2018 It was whenever you and I were both at Origins, like 2008, 2009.
It was it was about then. Sounds probably 2009-ish. That was when Tegan was still at the daycare area and somehow had gotten hold of scissors and cut her eyelashes. Not only cut her bangs, but cut her eyelashes short. That was an interesting find.
The funny thing was, my friend Lance was at Origins with us, and he got just addicted to this game. And so like every time we turned around, he was in the open play area, just like playing it. He bought a version of it, and like he sucked us all into it. And so we've loved it. So the idea for Race for the Galaxy, and I guess the story behind this, it was originally meant to be a card version of Puerto Rico, the board game, which I've never played Puerto Rico, so I can't really compare.
I've heard a lot about it, but I have not played it.
Yeah, so it's like resource management-y, but it wasn't quite working in terms of replicating that sort of gameplay. But it worked really well for a themed Race for the Galaxy game. So the idea here is that you're building a galactic empire and you're trying to expand it as quickly as you can while generating points. So there's a lot of different mechanics. And so the idea is you're laying out 12 different cards. The first person to get to 12 ends the game, but it doesn't necessarily win the game because you're trying to rack up points as you go along.
Our next game is kind of like that too. So,
okay, cool.
Foreshadowing.
So the strategy is you've got games like I'm holding up one right now, which is Volcanic World. And I have to say, this is one of those games, like when we were playing this, I think I was huge into Mass Effect, and it's got that Mass Effect feel to it. And the artwork is very reminiscent of like all of the kind of the setup for Mass Effect: Lost Alien Worlds, Uplifted Species, Galactic War eventually. And there were like 5 expansions, so it can get kind of ridiculous. Nice. But it's really cool. And so you basically have these worlds. So I'm holding up Volcanic World. It's a brown world, which allows you to create ore. Like it's a mining resource. It's brown resources.
Okay.
And you can spend those to purchase worlds, right? And you can either buy additional cards or you can use them to buy victory points. And the idea is you're building out this tableau and they reinforce each other. So you try and get a theme going. So in a ore centric or a mining centric build, and I should say this isn't a collectible game, right? Everything you need to play is in the cards, is in the game that when it comes with it. But you don't necessarily know as you're drawing what you're going to get. You just draw, I think, an initial 5 cards, and then you figure out what you can do with it.
Sounds kind of like an engine building game.
Yeah, sort of.
In some, like I think that's what they call it, where as you build cards, you're trying to find cards that have synergies with your other cards, and then it's just like a big giant snowball of stuff.
So there's like mining guild, right? And mining guild gives you bonuses for playing mining worlds. And then there's like the mining conglomerate, and that's like a level 6 card, which is very expensive to build and play, but gives you end game bonuses and rewards you for every mining related card that you have in the game. And there's different ones like that. There's a consumer goods one where it's all like entertainment worlds. There's another where they're very expensive cards, but it's alien technology. And so it can take a lot to get the alien cards, but if you get the alien cards, they're going to be worth a lot of points, and that might be enough for you to win the game. And when you're playing it, there's not a lot of opportunities to mess with other people. So it's almost like you're playing a collective solitaire game, but you have to be cognizant of what other people are doing. Because if you're going for a mining build, but then you realize that somebody else got one of the cards you're going to need, then that's a problem. You probably can't pursue that build. The other thing that's interesting is the resources are actually represented by the cards. And so if you produce a good on a particular world, you take like 2 cards or 4 cards or whatever to represent that good. And so the interesting thing from a mechanical standpoint is it's taking that card out of play, right? Because it's now sitting on this world representing goods that were produced by that world, which means somebody else can't use them. So it was interesting because at Origins, people were actually using tokens to represent the goods that were being produced so that they didn't have to use the cards. But as we were talking about it after the fact, I'm like, well, you've actually kind of fundamentally changed the gameplay because you're not taking cards out of circulation if you do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, either way it worked. It's a really fun game. It's It plays, I think it's like 2 to 4 is the base set. There have been myriad expansions. There is a Galactic War version, which allows you to have one of the storylines is Rebels versus Empire. And so those two factions can start to interact with one another, and you can steal cards from one another, but that's really sort of like a secondary game mechanic. There's another game that is a spin-off from this, which is called Roll for the Galaxy, which my son and I have actually been playing a ton of. It's a great 2-person game. Maybe if we get into dice games that we love, I can talk more about Roll for the Galaxy, but it's nice. It's similar. And I'll say this for this game, we can get into it more in a future episode. If you ever wanted a game that has hundreds of dice, and I'm not exaggerating, this is the game. Gotcha. Because it comes with like 80 dice, and with the 2 expansions, probably
is I think I don't play a lot of dice games. Not because I don't want to, but just lack of ability to in terms of like availability.
Yeah.
But Quarriors was a lot of fun. I even had I think I had the iPad or Android version of Quarriors as well. But yeah, you can get a lot of dice in Quarriors as well. And each of those games are different too.
Right. The other thing that's interesting about this game is that it has a phase mechanic. And so basically as a player, you're picking which phase you're going to go on, right? So there's an explore phase, which lets you just draw additional cards. There's a settle phase, which is how you would actually play those worlds. There's a trade phase where you're producing, there's a produce phase where you're producing goods. Then there's a consume where you actually consume those goods. And all these have mechanical effects, right? And so the interesting thing is, I'm paying attention to what other people are doing because I'm gambling on what phase you're going to play, right? So if you know that
that's part of the strategy.
It's part of the strategy. Like if you know that I've been scrambling to find a particular world, and there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to be doing explore. So you don't need to do explore, but you kind of want explore to happen, but you're going to do settle. Gotcha. Alternatively, right, you can see that you have a whole bunch of worlds out, but none of them have any goods sitting on it, right? So if I can see that you're in that situation, you've got 3 worlds, no goods, there's a pretty good chance you're going to choose produce, which means I don't have to choose produce, right? Because you want to try and get into this efficiency of, well, that means I can play a development card, which is a different kind of card, right, on a different phase, and then maybe you can get that synergy going. Or all of you are just desperate. You're not paying attention, and you all just go on the same phase.
Gotcha.
But it's a fun game.
So if you've chosen to, if you're one of the other people at the table chooses a particular phase, everybody does that phase?
Yeah, sorry, I should explain that. Yes. And you get a bonus for picking that particular phase. So there is a reason why everybody would want to choose produce, because you get a little something extra if you chose that phase to be your phase.
Right.
But even if you didn't, you're still going to get to do something. So you might get 1 good on your world while you get 3. It's been actually a while since I played this, because this is one of our go-to games for the real world group, and we haven't met that often since the pandemic. But it's cool. It's cool for a game that is largely solitaire. It's interesting how you still have to pay attention, and it's still very social.
Gotcha.
So I very much recommend it for people who are looking for a sci-fi game to play with their friends, but don't want something that's really cutthroat. Like, you like managing your own thing, you like paying attention to what other people are doing, but other people aren't going to come along and necessarily mess with you in the way that they would with, say, Exploding Kittens.
Yeah. I said a minute ago that, when you got to, in Race for the Galaxy, when you got to 12 cards, that triggered the end game.
Right.
The next game, that's my only segue into this next game. It's called Six Nimmt. There's another more English name for it, but Six Nimmt is what I know it by. It was actually suggested to me by our other former Overlord Johnson. There are cards from I believe it's 1 to like 106, and they're just numbers.
Okay.
Every person at the table gets a hand of 10 cards. And then there's like a tableau on the table of 4 cards in a column. And those are random. You each take turns by taking 1 card from your hand, and it has to go in the row that the card you've chosen has to go be the closest number to one of the cards in the column but the card in your hand has to be greater. So if it's less than, it basically, it's like it doesn't fit, sort of thing.
Right.
You have to place those in that order. So sometimes you're like, oh, I have 5, 6, and 7. And you're like, okay, I'm going to play 5. And then someone else plays 8. Well, now you can't play 6 and 7 in that row. And you're stuck with that. So you're playing these different cards. If you can't play a card, like if all the numbers are too high and you have a bunch of low cards, I believe that's when you can choose to take a row of cards and then place a new card of yours from your hand down. And the cards you picked up kind of go into a side pile for scoring later.
Gotcha.
If you are the person who would place down the 6th card in a row, you pick up the other 5 cards, and that 6th card becomes the new card there. And you play until your hand is empty. Everybody's hand is empty, and that's when the round turn, whatever, the hand stops, and everybody counts what they've picked up. So you're going to do this probably multiple times, because the end game trigger is the first person to get to 66 points triggers the end game. And so when the last play has gone on the last round, you played all the cards in your hand, you tally them up, and you go, oh, somebody, I got 66 points. We're done. Like that's the end game. Everybody else looks at their points, oh, I got 68. Oh, I got 60. Oh, I got 50. I got 2, whatever. Right. The person with the lowest total score wins. So your goal is to not take cards. And so that's why you would do, oh, this person put down a 5. I don't know that they have, 6 and 7, but like they may have a gleam in their eye or whatever when they put it down. Right. I don't know. You have to go with your own gut and go, yeah, I'm going to put an 8 here and hopefully block, right. 6 and 5 and 6 to get put down if someone put down the 4, or 6 and 7 if someone put down the 5. But it's, there's up to 104 sort of thing, so it's entirely possible that first card in the row could be 104. You can't place anything higher than that. Right. And so there is sometimes a strategy of taking a row and putting down a card that that you have a good line after for. And so you're willing to take the hit on those points. Gotcha. Not every card is worth the same. Cards that are divisible by 5 and divisible by 10, like I believe that if they're divisible by 5, they're 5 points. If they're divisible by 10, they're like 7 or 10 points. And then all the other cards are worth, I think, 1 or 3 points each, depending upon their numbers. It's fun. It's a bit of a math game-ish, but it plays really fast. But it's also got some strategy in it in terms of like, which cards do you want to put down now versus which cards do you want to hold? Wait for a row to clear so that you can, start with these other cards, etc. Yeah, I would recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It would be another one that would be okay at a restaurant as well. Right. You would need a decent sized table. It's not a huge table space, but you don't want to have like tons of glasses and plates and stuff around in order to fit everything. So. Gotcha. It sounds interesting because my family, particularly my in-laws, really enjoy playing card games. And I could see that like they like to play Rummy and May I, and just like if there's a card game, we probably played it. And so I could see this being a different kind of game that they would really get into because it would scratch that particular itch. Yeah. Yeah. And this was actually suggested to me, I believe, because I had mentioned another card game called The Mind, which was all number cards. This one has an interesting play, which is you're supposed to put down cards. They're all numbers. And as you put down cards, you start with a base number, and the next player has to play another card that's higher. No one knows who the next player is. So what I mean is, like, say a 4 gets put down. Somebody has to go, okay, well, I have a 5. I can put that down. But if they have like a 10, you don't play, you only have so many cards in the deck, in your hand, I should say. And there's a huge amount of cards sitting off to the side that are not in play for that game. So right. Like, even though you can go up to, I think, like 101, you may only have 30 cards in the game. And so the person who's supposed to go next is supposed to lay down the next highest card that they think anyone else at the table has. And this is basically a cooperative game, but you're not allowed to talk or give away what numbers that you have. So you kind of got to get this synchronicity with your, with your other players going of like, is this the right way? Is this the right one? And then if it gets wrong, you get like 3 strikes and you're out, sort of thing. So like if the group gets 3 strikes, then game over, reset, try again. The goal is to get all of your cards played out so that's always the whole discard pile is in ascending order. That was called the Mind, and I was mentioning and talking about that with Chris Johnson, and he was like, you should try out Six Nimmt. It's a different game, still with numbers. I think that's basically the thing there, but it was a lot of fun.
To quote Captain America, adding it to the list.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your attention. We would love to hear from you. We're on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Mastodon. And if you want any of those things, you can go to lairofsecrets.com, and we've got a list. We've got all of our links there. We even have a Discord link. And so if you want to join our Discord, I believe that link is up there too. You are very welcome to join. There may be more by the time you get this, so head over to Lair of Secrets to find all the places we have infiltrated. And thank you very much. Have a great time. Have a great night, day, whenever you listen to this. It's nighttime here.